Hi, welcome back to another JH podcast. Jason Hyde creates sustainable jewelry and watches out of sustainable materials. And we're here with Rodrigo Butori, who is originally from Brazil and a marketing genius. And he's here to talk about his company, Plastic Fisherman. So how are you, Rodrigo?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Thank you for the genius part. I don't know if I deserve it, though. I appreciate it very, very much. I'll tell my mom.
Definitely, let her know.
No, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be part of the Jason Hyde family. And it's thank you very much for giving me the space to talk a little bit about Plastic Fisherman and the efforts that we have.
No, of course. Tell me a little bit more about Plastic Fisherman.
So, Plastic Fisherman is it's a passion project, right? It's a personal passion project. It's something that I started out of a personal necessity, and out of a love for the ocean. I grew up near the ocean. I mean, I love the ocean. I call it home. It's a cornerstone of my life. I feel more comfortable, at the ocean or in the water than sometimes I feel in the land. Since I was a kid, I started surfing. I started diving. I like to fish when I was a kid too. And I come from Brazil, as you said, right? Like it's my original, the country that I came from, that I was born in, and I lived in São Paulo. São Paulo is a city which is around like a 2-hour away from the beach, right? So it was one of those loves that I had that only happened during the weekend, because during the week I had to come back, and be, at school and all that good stuff. So as I grew, older and started working in advertising, I started making some money, and I used that money, to travel. And just for surfing purposes mostly. So I'll go to the craziest corners around the world to surf, and sometimes to dive. And there was this thing that always bothered me as I did go to some of the furthest places out there, which was to always find plastic, right? Like you go to this empty beach, middle of the Indonesian island, or a chain in the Pacifics, and there was nobody, but there was a lot of plastic. And it was one of those things that's just this stays with you. And I'm working in advertising, and I'm caring about all these brands, but I'm not really caring or giving back to the place that it's giving me so much, which is the ocean. With time, I decided to move to the United States and kind of restarted over here. So I moved to LA again to be close to the water, continue working in advertising, continuing caring for brands, continue seeing plastic pollution. Eventually moved to Miami as of 10 years ago. And Miami, it's not a place for surfing, but it's a place for diving. So that was the other half of what I love, that I really fulfill, free diving. And if while I was surfing, I was seeing all that, trash in the beach, when I started diving, I started seeing all the trash in the water. So I was like, oh my God, I got to do something, and so it grew and grew to a point that it was just what am I doing? I work with advertising. I work with with messaging. I convince people about buying products, about buying things that sometimes even happen to end in the ocean. And I'm not doing anything about this place that gave me so much, right? This place that gave me the food, they gave me some of my best moments, my best friends. They all come out of that space. So I decided to start Plastic Fisherman. It was my way to unite my love for the ocean with my love for creativity and advertising and design, and find a solution to that. And what triggered Plastic Fisherman? Again, I had this thought. I just didn't know what to do with it. I knew it was plastic pollution, but I didn't know what to do with it. What triggered was this statement that I read a year and a half ago or so, which was this that said that scientists, there was a World Economic Forum that stated that by 2050 there will be more plastic than fish, right, in the ocean, by tonnage, right? So the amount of fish, if you weigh it all, versus the amount of plastic that you weigh, if you weigh it all, there will be more plastic, right?
That's
and
cool.
that blew my mind. I was just wait, what? We're only 30 years away for something like that. So, and it was one of those things that it's a disputed fact. There's some people that challenge that, but it doesn't matter. It's to a point that we're having that kind of conversation. And when you're having that kind of conversation, you're not in a good place, So I thought about that, and I was like, oh my God, like if we don't do something, plastic will become, our species, our ocean's number one species, right? It's going to take the space of fish. And that's how the whole idea of like making the fish out of plastic, came to be. So what I started doing after that is that every time I went to the beach, and I live in Miami, like I said, I would pick up a few pieces of plastic. I would like make a little fish with that, plastic trash that I collected. I would snap a picture, then film it, me disposing of it, and post it on Instagram. And I call that plastic fishing. And the idea was just to ask more people out there to do the same. To say, hey guys, if we don't do something, this is the kind of fish that our kids, and ourselves will be seeing in a pretty, close future. And that's how, it came to be, and it started growing and growing. And this idea of plastic fishing, it's becoming more and more of a movement. And that's it. Like that's basically what I did. Of course, now I'm making some T-shirts and I'm making other things, but they are just a little byproduct of this bigger idea, which is, the important one, honestly, which is the idea of plastic fishing.
Yeah, it's a really good concept that you're creating, and I'm glad a lot of people are following your ideas. That's good. And
it's getting there. It's a game of showing and talking and explaining and educating people. It's the concept itself is a simple one. It's just not a lot of people know about it. So I think the fish are just a really nice mechanic to use on a place like Instagram, which you have so much exposure, right? Yeah. To convey an important message, important facts, and important, information.
I've seen your fish in person, and they're very nice, really cool. And I've also seen them online on your website. It's a great idea to bring awareness to what's happening. I really like it.
Thank you.
And I also saw your T-shirts, and they're online as well. And how do you get funding to like help the plastic, to clean the plastic and everything? Because I know you have the online store and everything.
Yeah.
How can people like help and donate?
Thank you for the question. It's an important one. It's plastic fishing is a personal, like I said, it's a personal project. So as of now, it's a personal investment of time, of money, and the store itself. It's something that I've built. Like everything that you see from Plastic Fisherman, I didn't hire anybody to do it. It's all me. Like it's me coding, it's me like designing, it's me like
amazing.
It's a personal, again, like investment. Like my wife looks at me and go like, oh my God, like you're really into this, and my daughter, and I'm like, yeah. I feel like again, I gotta give back, right? I got so much from the ocean, I gotta somehow give back, and that's my way of doing it. So. It is a personal, it's a personal investment, and the T-shirts. If you go to plasticfisherman.shop, right? You'll see it's a limited edition, line of shirts, and they're made in the same way that I do that I make the fishes. It's this belief of recycle, repurpose, and reuse. So. Just like I pick up the plastic and I transform this plastic that nobody wants into the little fish, right, and turn that into a message, I try to do the same with the T-shirts. So all the T-shirts that you see over there, they were picked up by myself, at post-consumer markets or recycling centers or garment, wholesale places. So they were about to be discarded. So I got them, the ones that I like the most. I took care of them. I printed myself, each one of them are unique, one of a kind type of T-shirts, and I try to sell them for a very reasonable price. It's $18, right? If you go to comparing like to other, great associations that also sell T-shirts that are in that same space, they are $35 or $30 because a lot of that money ends up going back to help that, fund those efforts, which is something I think it's fantastic. In my case, that's basically paying, for the materials. So it's 18. And for me, the T-shirts are not a way of making money or anything. They're just a badge. I see them really as a badge. It's they say that you are one of us, right? If you wear like a Plastic Fisherman T-shirt, you are a plastic fisherman, right? It's not about making money. It's about getting more people to do it, getting more people to spread the message. Because at the end of the day, like there's a line by Eduardo Galeano that I really, really like that says like many small people in small places doing small things can change the world, right? Eduardo Galeano is this Uruguayan writer, journalist.
That's a great quote.
So that's the principle over here. You know, it's everybody doing a little thing. Again, 5 pieces, 10 pieces, a little fish here and there. If you do it all the time, if everybody do it, billions of people like learn about the problem, you know, take action and do something, right? Reduce the use of plastics, single-use plastics, or put pressure on you know, on their leaders. I mean, we're many, you know. And I think that's the intention here, to really scale it up, that thinking.
That's fantastic. And do you ever think of like creating your t-shirts out of the plastic that's from the ocean? You think you would ever do that?
That's a very good question. Before I started the t-shirts, and again, I started the t-shirts because I wanted to wear what I believe, right? So it was very much like that kind of a belief versus just, you know, making the t-shirts. I did quite a lot of research. First, I look for those kind of t-shirts, right? Like the recycling pellets and all that. What I did not like about that is that every time you wash those t-shirts, plastic is coming out, right? So in many ways, you're contributing to the problem, right? So I was like, I don't know if I want to take that route. Then I look at, you know, regular t-shirts, right? Okay, like, what if I buy 100% cotton, right? Then I was like, okay, if I do that, then I'm like stimulating that industry, and you know how much goes into making each t-shirt, right? There's a lot of all the soap, all the chemicals, everything that goes into making the t-shirts. Not to talk about labor, that is not helping, right? Hence why I landed on this idea of like, you know what, I'm going to save the t-shirts, right? Just like I'm doing the same with plastic, like using it for a second purpose. I'm going to use t-shirts that were supposed to be discarded and renew their purpose. So for me, it was the easiest way to continuing the message that I have. And like I said, it's like it's not scalable. It's not something like I'm making the t-shirts. If you tell me, hey Rod, you have 100,000 t-shirts to make, I'm screwed. You know. But if you say you have to make 10, 15, 20, whatever, then I spend my nights pressing them and doing all that stuff. Wow. That's kind of where I am right now.
You have your own machine to press?
Yeah, I have a press machine, and I'm also making the posters. I mean, that's not a thing that's on the store. It's not just the t-shirts, right? You have like a lot of people ask me like, hey, why don't you keep the fish, right? Instead of like making the fish and disposing of them, why don't you like glue them or something, put them on some kind of a background and sell them for people to have in their houses? And I don't know. I mean, I really like this idea of ephemeral, of something that just like happens and disappears and it's not there anymore. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm trying to do. I want to make that plastic disappear. If I bring more plastic to somebody's house, again, I'm not helping. I prefer to discard them properly, and then they go into recycling centers and all that stuff. Which at the end of the day, we all know the limitations of recycling and all that. But I felt it was the most rational way to approach the problem. But that said, so going back to the prints. What I do is like the photography that I take, I have them like, doing with my phone, but I treat them, color correction and all that. And then I have prints. So if you like them, you could have them, at your house as a memory of that moment and not necessarily the piece itself,
That's very cool. I like that you found like the best solution to get rid of the plastic in terms of the t-shirt industry. Mm. And where do you go to like these places to find these t-shirts?
There's a couple of places in Miami. There's a couple of places you find online. It's not easy, to be honest, but you find them, and it's really not easy to find the colors. I mean, to have if you go on the store, you'll see there's like 3 shirts of this color, 2 of this. They run out very quickly just because of that nature. And then sometimes people order. I just had an order. It's kind of funny, and it was a black one. And I was like, oh my God, I just run out of those. And I'm looking at my wife going like, oh man, what do I do over here? And then, so with time, I was able to find another one. But I deal with that and I'm okay. I mean, I'm fine with that concept. Again, I'm trying to to create a movement. I'm trying to get people to do it. I'm trying to get people to wear it because of what they're believing, and not because, it's a cash, it's a cash cow. So
yeah, definitely. And this Plastic Fisherman is your main job, or do you balance like another job of yours?
Yeah, no, it's no. I would be broken if it was my main job.
No, but you put all your heart into it. I like it.
Yeah, man. Trust me, I would love this to be my main job, and I hope that one day this could be like if all progresses accordingly to my dreams. But no, I work in advertising, right? I'm a creative by trade. I'm working as a creative in the advertising industry. My specialization is design. So I always worked in agencies from around 30 years at this point. And this year was an interesting year because of the quarantine and working from home and all that, which made, Plastic Fisherman, grow. I just had, the proper time, and I was able to like go every day, and do the cleanings and pick up the trash and make fish. Yeah. So it runs parallel, but as you know, like, running a social account is not easy. It's a lot of work. So I try to block, 2 or 3 hours of my day, sometimes at night, to just like, push it. And again, it's out of passion, man. It's out of like, you go that, extra mile just because you care,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, luckily you're a marketing genius and a design genius. I'm very into it as well. I do a lot of Adobe, Photoshop, and Illustrator.
Great. That's awesome. Yeah. Those are the tools that I use a lot, actually. Those are my main tools. Not only for of course for Plastic Fisherman, but for everything else I do. A lot of editing too, but yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I heard, I don't know if it's true, but I heard that you teach younger students about the misuse of plastic.
No, I don't teach kids about the plastic. What I wanted to do and how a Plastic Fisherman is growing to be. The original idea with Plastic Fisherman, it was an educational platform, right? So again, make the fish, use the fish as a way to get people to pay attention to the problem. The truth is that people, I mean, I'm not talking about kids, right? I'm talking about adults. The solution to this problem is a complicated one because we rely so much in plastic, but a lot of people don't know about it, right? People just don't understand the scale of the plastic pollution, the marine plastic pollution problem. Plastic pollution as a whole, but the marine one. And it's not that complicated, right? If you go online, if you do some research, if you go into scientific sources, if you go to the NOAA, if you go to the Surfrider Foundation or the UN Environmental Program, you can go to more biased, places like Oceana or Surfrider that depend, and there are nonprofits that are working on it, or you can go to like completely scientific driven ones, and you're going to find the exact same information because, of course, they are exchanged and they're true facts, But people don't do that. That's the thing. People, people prefer to focus their minds into like, gossip, pop culture, and other things. And you have this monster brewing, in the ocean, which eventually is going to bite us back, in the long term. But Plastic Fisherman was just a way of like trying to filter that information and educate people like through the post. So when you look at that cute little plastic, it's not just the plastic fish. It's not just a plastic fish. Under it, you're going to get a lot of information. So some of my posts are like facts, right?
Yes.
Hard facts. Some of my posts then are just like, how you could help, right? Like ways of helping. Some of the other posts are, and I think you've seen some of those, are like, it's scientific names for the fish, and I play with like of the fish, right? And how, this fish is hurting the world and all that stuff. But it's all like, it's always information and education somehow infused, in this, nice visual and cute name sometimes. So the kids part, just going back to your question, the kids part was how I started. I was like, you have to educate kids from the get-go, educate people from the get-go, right? Like young. And I have an 11-year-old daughter, so she's a perfect target. And early in the year, I started to searching for schools here in Miami and groups and, and Girl Scouts and such things to start trying to have them, do plastic fishing. But then COVID hit us and nobody wanted to touch trash, right?
Nobody.
like no, thank you. I continue doing it. I continue doing it myself, of course. But what happened is, as it grew, people around the world who were educators, right? Teachers or school owners and all that, including in Miami, started like paying attention, seeing it. And hey, do you mind if I, start teaching my kids that? I was just like, that's fantastic. That was always the idea. So right now, we have people in Dusseldorf doing it. You have people in Australia, doing it. You have people here in Miami doing it. So you have people in Brazil doing it. So they're all, like I said, they got the concept, they got the idea, and they're running with it, which is fantastic. That's always what I wanted to do. The idea of plastic fishing was always something for people to understand, capture, and use it. And again, the more, the better, So that's where we are right now. My hopes are that, and I'm talking to people right now, is to try to get it to be like, for instance, like Girl Scouts. It's an easy one, right? We have like a group here in Surfside that I want to get involved with. I'm trying to get schools to some schools, it doesn't matter where, it doesn't have to be Miami, it can be anywhere, to make that part of like their science curriculum or something like that. Of course, like, cleanups, like Clean Miami Beach with Sophie and some other groups who are trying to bring that as part of their activities. So they clean up the beach, and then, at the end, there's some kind of fish competition or something like that, just to make it fun, So that's kind of where we are right now.
I think it's very smart to start from the get-go, educating younger students about what's going on, and then eventually you could do something. Because I think the problem is that plastic just comes back one way or another to the ocean. Even if it's being recycled, there's a huge problem with that. And I feel like we don't know how to figure that out yet. We still have a lot to learn. And
it's complicated because it's like you said, it's nonstop. So we have around 300 million, I think, tons of plastic being produced every year, and only 10% of that plastic gets recycled, right? So we were, thought, my generation specifically, the 80s and 90s, that just recycling is a good thing, and we learn to recycle, we care about it. But what we didn't understand was that there's all kinds of different plastics, right? So you have basically, I think, 6 different types of plastics, and it's not all of them that can be recycled, right? Just a few of them can be recycled in a economically viable way. Yeah. Right? A few more of them could be recycled, but it costs a lot of money. So it's cheaper to make new plastic than recycle it. And some of them are just not, they just go to landfills. So what you have is like 10% or so, is recycled. 12% gets burned or goes to landfills. And 78%, man, 78% of the plastic that it's produced, goes to landfills or environment. Of that 78%, I mean, just going crazy with numbers here, 80 million tons of plastic go to the ocean every
80 million.
8 million tons of
8
plastic.
million.
8 million tons.
Wow.
Plastic into the ocean every year. So every year there's 8 million tons of plastic entering, and it comes through rivers, right? We think, it's people like trashing at the beach. No, man, that's bad, of course, and that's an educational problem. We have to, educate people to not trash, but a lot of it comes out of like drains, right? So you see on the street, you see poor communities around the world. You see those rivers filled with plastic. I mean, where do they end up? Right, they end up in the ocean. So that's the main source of plastic right there. And the plastic out in the ocean, in the sea, represents 80% of all debris that's out there. So when you talk about plastic pollution in the ocean, right, like what's floating out there above or even under, 80% of that is plastic based. So if you control that, you're controlling like a gigantic amount of the problem. I mean, as you probably know, 700 or more than 700 species have been, proven to be affected by plastic. 1 in 3 sea turtles, 9 in 10 seabirds, and half of dolphin species that have been tested have eaten plastic. So it's a huge thing, and we keep thinking it's a fish problem, right? It's an ocean problem. I'm here with my life. I'm watching Netflix. I'm playing my video game. I'm going to work, whatever. But we forget that, the ocean represents, a huge part of who we are. We own our life with the sea. We came from the sea, right? We evolved. So 70% of our oxygen comes from the sea. 40% of us still rely on it for food, right? So we're eating plastic, and it's also this enormous, air conditioning for the planet, right? So when we mess with the ocean, through plastic pollution or through any of greenhouse gas emissions that are messing up with that, or in runoffs, industrial runoffs and all that stuff that mess with temperature or mess with acidity and all that, we're basically screwing ourselves over. It might not happen right now, but it's gradually happen, right? So to a point, there's just what you're going to do. You can't plant fish, the species are gone, they're gone. And if you talk to anybody who's a real fisherman out there, they'll tell you that you can't find fish anymore. That like they used to have. You have these enormous fleets of industrial, level, really gigantic nets for just wiping that out, tuna and all that. And then you add that to the plastic pollution, to the runoffs, and we're killing the very place that keeps us alive. So people go oh, it's a small thing, plastic. I was like, no, it's not. It's our future as a species, So
we rely on it. We rely on the ocean.
Exactly. That needs to click. The economy is important. Of course, it's important. Our jobs, everyday jobs are important. But if we don't think a little bit broader as a species, we're shooting ourselves in the foot big time, and there's no turning back. It's not going to be humans. It's going to be something else. Because
I feel there's because we know that this is not affecting us right now, this moment. I feel we're a little bit more lazy about it. We're pushing it up to the generation in the future, and that's going to be a huge problem.
That's the history of humankind, man. It always leave it to our grandsons, and next thing you know, it's our grandsons are just dealing with it, and they pass their next problem to their grandsons, and so forth. It's terrible, man. It's sad, but I don't know. I think I believe in people, man. I believe that when we learn, when we understand, when we truly understand what's at stake, and when we truly understand the problem, we take action. I really do. I think the problem is there's not enough information, there's not enough education, there's not enough push for that. I'm talking on a global scale, right?
Definitely.
To communities and places that don't understand the importance of that yet. So there's some really great people doing some really good work, but unless we have a government, level, I'm talking about top level, UN backed up, effort towards a change, and reversing that, which hopefully, with this new, government will start happening. We are backing ourselves in the corner that we cannot come back from. So it'll be very selfish. I mean, for our generation to just agree with that and just go along, So I hopefully we won't.
Definitely. You mentioned for a little second that you collaborated with Clean Miami Beach, and I just want to know what other collaborations or projects have you done, and anything else to help clean the beach. So Plastic Fisherman is a young project, right? I started less than a year ago, and I think I've done around 200 fish, and 150 of them are published. And recently I partnered with Clean Miami Beach with Jason Hyde too in this project called a Plastic Aquarium. And that's something that, Sophie from Clean Miami Beach and myself have been talking for a while, which was how do we get exposure to the fish, right? Because again, they're a really nice, vessel to get the information across. And we talked, to Miriam and the folks at Jason Hyde, and they gave us the space, to bring that, to their store. So the intention is to continue doing, the Plastic Aquarium, continue exposing more and more people to it, and hopefully, again, if each and every one of us do something, if each person that sees it thinks about it and tells a friend, that's the kind of exponential growth that we want. Same thing, with the use of Instagram. Same thing with
seeing all these other great groups out there doing their job. So, but at the end of the day, when you ask me about like collaboration, I think the biggest collaborator that I have are the people out there who are also honestly like making their fish, who believe in the idea, who like that idea, and who are like, going out, seeing trash at their beach, at the canal, or at the backyard, or whatever, at the park or trail or whatever, and saying, no, it's not my trash, but I'm going to pick it up anyway. And that's the mentality, like you pick up that trash and then, you remove it out of nature. You make a little fish and you share it with the world with them. I say, hey, this is where I caught this fish, right? And that's for me the collaboration, the biggest collaboration is with everybody, with every plastic fisherman out there.
And what do you think the future goals? I know this is a stretch, but like for a plastic fisherman, like do you want to expand the company to a different country? Like what did?
I mean, I don't think I'm a company. I mean, I think it's an idea, right?
An organization.
Yeah, it's a movement, it's an organization. But I like to think that I am the guy who started the plastic fishing type of movement, right? And that movement is what I would love to see growing. So I'm going to try to take as many steps as I can to get more people to start plastic fishing, right? To pay attention to the ocean, even if they don't make a fish, just like take a couple of plastic when they're walking out of, back to their cars, from the beach. Or, I mean, that's my main goal. It's for them to, like, when they vote, they pay attention to who has, a platform that pays attention to that issue and cares for that issue. It's for them to urge their, like, local legislators to, like, ban plastic, bags from their grocery stores or plastic straws from restaurants, or refuse plastic utensils when they order takeout. I mean, those are the little things that, again, like, if everyone does it, like the little things that if many people do, make a difference, So that's my goal. Ryan, as for myself, I would love to get beyond just making the fish, right? Like, again, growing the movement, but maybe like get more involved with, like, local authorities here in Miami, trying to extend the role of the plastic fisherman beyond just like the idea of plastic fishing and how I can help further the fight against, plastic pollution and save our oceans for all the reasons that, I stated early on. I mean, that passion and that need that I have to return, to the place that gave me so much.
And whoever's listening right now and has not gone to plasticfisherman.com yet, or their Instagram to see the fishes, please do so right now. It's one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen, and we should all do it right now. But
thank you very much. Thank you.
What do you think is a way or like a platform that people? I know what you're doing is very bringing awareness to the whole situation, but what do you think? Is there another platform that people can use to learn about plastic and the misuse of it right now?
I mean, I would recommend going to the same places that I do, which are like, science-based, places. Of course, you have media, you have organizations, then you have like the sources, the ones that are actually doing the research, right? I tend to like places like the NOAA, the Marine Debris Program. They have a website, NOAA. Also, the UN Environment Program. The UN has quite a lot of interesting, information about it. The IUCN is also a good one, which is International Union for Conservation of Nature. Britannica, the Britannica Encyclopedia also has quite a lot of information about it. So again, I would just, invite people to dive in and just read and at their leisure, right? There's quite a lot of interesting documentaries that they can watch on Netflix. The Story of Plastic is a great one.
I've heard of that one.
On YouTube. I mean, it depends, right? Some people like to read, some people like to watch, right? Some people like to listen to a great podcast like yours. But I think seeking that information is very, very important. And then, of course, we're talking about plastic pollution and that, but anything, right? I think we're living in a time that people are forgetting to seek for reliable and scientific-based, information. And I think we need more of that. I think you can only base your decisions on knowledge, and that knowledge and the source of that knowledge is quite important. If you like non-profit organizations, there's quite a lot of them, right? On a bigger level, of course, there's WWF, there's Surfrider Foundation, there's Ocean, there's the Sea Shepherd. I like a lot what Sophie's doing over here with Clean Miami Beach. Clean This Beach Up is another great one here in Miami. There's a lot of good groups here, doing work, cleanup work. And again, local level, large level, right? Global level. But I think that's education. And then there's action, right? Because once you educate yourself, what do you do, right? Like, what do you do with all that information? Yeah. So like I said, I would like try to simplify the use of, or eliminate. Eliminate is complicated because we have so much plastic in our lives. That would be naive for me to say, hey, let's just get rid of it, because you can't, But there's ways to reduce that, and it's like, for instance, you can avoid disposable plastics like grocery bags, plastic wraps, disposable cutlery, styrofoam, like those plates or those cups.
Water bottles
is the worst. Styrofoam it breaks up like with just a few months, it completely breaks up and becomes these like tiny little pieces of plastic everywhere, and you cannot clean up, which like is microbes. A huge problem. Microplastics. We should talk about that because that's a huge problem. But anyway, straws, coffee lids. You go to Starbucks, like, you don't need the lid. Just get the paper cup. That's enough. Reusable water bottles. Like, I mean, come on. Like, we all know that those companies are not selling water; they're selling plastic, right? Like,
exactly.
To get water from Fiji, like, come on, man. Like, there's water like right next to you, So I think you got to be very careful with like carbon prints and all that stuff, or where is it coming from? But also, like, again, try to eliminate. Get a
People should stop buying water bottles. It makes no sense. You finish the water in 2 minutes, then you go kill a fish because you threw it in the trash.
There you go. I see so many. I think the thing I see the most, that I catch the most, is bottle caps. Like, you won't believe the amount of bottle caps out there. I mean, I'm building a 3D fish now. It's my first 3D fish out of like bottle caps, because there's so many, So it's the first time I'm going to do something outside of the beach, and it's going to be out of bottle caps, because it's insane, the amount of bottle caps. So again, first you learn at those places, and then you take that your everyday kind of action by like trying to avoid the use or trying to eliminate as much as you can. Then you go to the bigger level, which is like how those measures could be applied in a larger state-wise, country-wise, or global-wise, type of scale, and that's government, right? So I go back to that. It's really like vote for people who are aware of the problem, right? Who are like not so compromised, by the barons of oil, and oil companies, and therefore they're willing to fight that fight, to find a solution to that problem. Because again, we just going to the oil. Just take a little caveat over here. Going to the oil problem, we all know that renewable energy is slowly growing. Thank God to take over, the old coal and oil, driven type of mechanics. So cars are more and more becoming electric and all that. So what's left, right, for oil? That's plastics. So it's a solution for all the oil for those companies to survive. So we got to be very mindful of that, because that's going to be a huge push. They're going to start recycling more. They're going to start pushing more messages of recycling. We can recycle with this, we can recycle that. But at the end of the day, it's a money-making thing, right? It's survival. So I think that we have to ask ourselves, who do we want to survive? Is it those guys, or is it us? So be very careful with those choices.
I like it. We're definitely moving towards a more renewable energy planet. So hopefully by the end of 2050, where the worst is going to happen to the fish if we continue, we won't have the use of oil anymore. Hopefully, but
hopefully that's where every people say, it's a dream, and there's it's a green talk, right? But I strongly believe that green is where the green money is, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the jobs, the evolution, the technology, everything's going to create new opportunities for people to grow. And so to look back at those old school forms of energy, I understand the resistance to change, but the economic benefits of that change will far surplus, I guess. Surplus is not the right word, but will be far better than the going back and resisting. There's a lot of potential growth economically and for society in taking that route.
Definitely.
Yeah. Sure. One thing though that I think we spoke briefly, and then when we talk about styrofoam, I think it's really worth mentioning is microplastics. I think you asked me about the T-shirt and why I haven't used a renewable T-shirts, right, or recyclable T-shirts, and my answer was like there's so many fibers that go out. That's the biggest problem with plastic today. When people think of the gyres in the ocean, right, those big currents, like where they say, there's an island of plastic the size of Texas, there's an island of plastic the size of France in the Atlantic Ocean and all that. People imagine this accumulation, and sometimes you see these pictures online of huge amounts of trash in some kind of a bay or something, and they go like, that's the island right there. No, that's not the case. Like you don't get in the middle of the ocean and you see an island of plastic. What you see is a soup of tiny pieces of plastic, so it's still blue, and of course you see like larger debris here and there, but most of it is just like this big. Even when I'm diving, here in Miami, we have quite a lot of the Gulf current, right? When you dive far offshore, like 8-10 miles out, you see like lots of pieces of this big passing by you, right? And that's the problem, because that's the plastic that the fish eat. And that's the hardest to clean up. That's the hardest to clean up and goes into the food chain, right? So a small fish eats, then the bigger fish eats, and the bigger fish, and then next thing you know, there's like this accumulation of plastic, happening throughout the whole food chain. And the bigger fish end up with like, a lot in their bellies. And in the case of sea turtles, I mean, sometimes it like clogs them, right? You got like balloons, like some rubber, the rubberish material kind of gets in over here, or the intestine tracts, and blocks. So they basically starve to death. Same thing with seabirds. So again, it's not that huge piece of trash that you see floating. That's the problem. It's the tiny pieces that will eventually they'll eventually break and become, right? Or like little pieces here and there that already broke with with the waves and the sun and all the elements kind of helping. So it's complicated. It's a very complicated thing, because it's to your point, you cannot fish that.
How can you clean that up? Yeah.
There are some mechanics for that, right? I think that's a personal opinion, right? I think there are ways that you can mitigate that problem. I think the first one is to not let it get to the ocean, right? Yeah. Will be the smartest way.
The education.
The education is one of them, of course, but there are also companies right now. I think Plastic Fisher is a technology that is just a startup right now that's doing that. But there's also the Ocean Cleanup Project, who's also doing that. That guy from the Netherlands, and he started like with this enormous kind of I would call like arms. It was just like flotation. Big floats.
Oh, I've heard of this. He called it the Interceptor, right? Something like that.
The Interceptor, the sea. Yeah. And what he did was just it's enough to grab a certain depth of plastic, but enough for the fish to go under, right? So if a fish gets hit by it, it goes under, and then it closes it, and then brings into this barge. And they collected like I don't know, like tons and tons and tons.
They're
and tons.
Geniuses. I heard about this in another podcast actually, and I think he goes to like Indonesia or Malaysia, and he collects from the rivers that are severely polluted.
There you go. So that's what he's doing. Like I was watching an interview with him, and they were even looking at the numbers, and they were saying like, if you think of all the like 8 million tons, right? They talk about like plastic going into the ocean every year versus what he's collecting. I think he was collecting like around 6 or 5% of what's out there. And he will never like, cover. Like he will be like working forever, and he will never clean it up. So what he figured out was just like, no, I shouldn't be working out there. I should be working in the rivers, right? I shouldn't be letting those 8 million tons, get into the ocean. So that's what he's been doing. And I think that him, Plastic Fisherman, and a bunch of other really nice, companies had that same idea of like, okay, let's make sure that the rivers do not let the plastic go out. And I think that then, along with some kind of a mitigation in the ocean. So let's imagine like, the ocean cleanup does that in the rivers, but then you also have your barges, right? In the gyres out there, like cleaning that up. I think with time, like put like 10, 20, 30 years, we can, start like seeing the plastic receding and then some, effective results. I mean, we can't forget that nature is beautiful, man. Like if you think of the COVID this year, like what happened with air pollution, right? Like we all got locked. We stopped driving our cars around. We stopped like, public transportation. And then you see like this crazy graphics showing like how air pollution completely disappeared, right? How some animals or birds or certain species were like going back to places that they were not. And that's like in a matter of months, right? So if we take good care of it, like in a matter of years, in a matter of decades, look at Chernobyl, like how nature took over. One of the worst places in the planet. So I think nature eventually comes up. We just got to give it space, and offer the proper conditions for that to happen. So I believe that we can get there. And I don't know. I have this pipe dream myself, and it's a pipe dream. But I feel like there's so much plastic out there, and that I wish people, scientists or companies or whoever will be, empowered to do so, we'll look at that as gold. We'll look at that and go like, what, let's just stop producing plastic and let's just go after the plastic that's out there. Let's start mining that plastic back, because it's there. I mean, if you just work a little bit better or develop your technology a little bit better, I think we can get to a point that we can like, use what's out there and just keep it to what we have. You don't need to produce more. Let's just start mining it. Just go back to that. When the plastic that's the first plastic that was ever invented, it's still there. It never disappeared. It still exists. It takes like 500 years for it to start breaking up. So it's
that's a great idea to mine for gold.
Yeah, I mean it's like I said, it's a pipe dream. I mean, if you work in the oil industry, you listen to that, go like, come on, man, like don't. That's you're killing all these jobs and whatever. But point is like there has to be a moment that we're gonna go like, what, stop. It's almost like flip the world upside down, shake it, let it all come down. There's a lot that we could use here that we can self-sustain for like, hundreds, if not thousands of years. I think this idea of keep on producing plastic is as problematic as trashing the plastic itself, because I mean, we're human. We're fallible, like we will keep on, making mistakes, and people will, even as educated as you get them to be, people will still, eventually trash here and there. Some of the bad decisions will be taken by organizations, and I feel like we have to be a little bit more drastic. We have to like cut the corners a little, not cut the corners, but cut the wings a little bit, and make sure that it's a controllable situation. Because, like I said, if we don't do that, man, I feel bad for my granddaughter, or my daughter. Yeah.
No, definitely. Thank God there's people like you and like Tim Miami Beach and like the guide from the Netherlands, the Interceptor, that are actually doing things. I want to go at least once a week to the beach and clean plastic.
Yeah, please do so. I mean, like I said, I'm just trying to get the message out. I mean, there's people who are really, really, really doing the work and really cleaning the plastic, like Sophie with Miami Beach, and many of these other organizations are doing a fantastic, fantastic job. I'm just their PR. I'm just trying to get people to pay attention to the problem, and
it's working. It's working.
Incredible respect for those who are like really removing tons of plastic out of the ocean, if not daily, weekly, monthly, or whatever. So
yeah, it's a terrible situation, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. but we'll get there. I think it's hopefully younger generations will learn and we'll have enough time to maneuver. I think it's in a.
There's the whole issue of like we're too many people on Earth right now. That's we're overpopulating, and that's why it's hard to control. I mean, these poor countries that they just keep on producing more and more, and the use of plastic keeps on getting used. There's nowhere to put it, so it eventually ends up in the ocean.
Yeah.
And you dive. You say you dive. I haven't even asked you that. How far deep do you go?
I'm not like a professional diver. I mean, I hit my like 45, 60 feet, and that's it. That's as deep as I can go. I'm completely out of shape right now, to be honest. when I'm like doing it consistently, that's usually where I go. And I dive with tanks eventually too, but I really like the free diving, the breathing, the control, I don't know. It's where I feel the most comfortable at. That's
incredible. Really, free diving, you go 60 meters there?
No, 60 feet. That's like
60 feet. Yeah, I was going to say.
You call me the Aquaman if I go 60 meters. Not the Plastic Fisherman. Yeah, that's my pastime, I guess, my hobby. But it's important, man. It's every day. I mean, since I was a kid, actually, it's kind of interesting. That's another part that I never mentioned. But since I started going to the beach, as long as I remember, I don't know if I used to do that as a kid, but I remember like to always walk back from the beach with like a few pieces of plastic, right? It was always like 5 plastic. It was like I would go surf, right? Whatever, leave the water, and from the water line to my car or to my house or whatever, I would like grab 5 pieces of plastic. It could be like a tire and 4 little pieces, or it can be like 5 little pieces. But it was just like a way of like, okay, 5 out, 5 out, 5 out. Diving is the same. When I'm diving, I'm always filling up my pocket, with pieces of plastic. My brother-in-law who dives with me, he's looking at me like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, no, man, I feel terrible if I don't, and I know it's one of those things that's just like it doesn't matter anything, it's not really matter. It doesn't really matter in the big scheme, but it makes me go like, what, like if everybody does that, we will be in a better place. So my hope is that people realize that it's so simple.
Definitely, you're at least you're doing something.
At least you're doing something, and that's the idea. That's what Plastic Fisherman is honestly all about. It was my way of saying I gotta do something, man. And
we go and we don't look at it. We turn our back to it. So
yeah,
at least whatever you're picking up, it's for sure doing something for the fishes that are swimming around there.
Exactly. It's very, very common. I mean, when I'm walking around the beach, I'm like picking up trash, right? Going in my bag and then start filling that up. And I walk by people and some bathing and literally like 1 feet away from 2 feet away from, I'm picking up stuff and they never even like thought about picking up. It's just like, man, it's like you can just, it's arm's reach, Yeah. They go like, oh, thank you for doing it. I'm like, oh yeah, you're welcome. But like, you could be doing this yourself, There's that resistance of it's not my plastic, right? It's like, it's not my trash. I wasn't the one, I didn't trash that, so I'm not going to touch it. It's just like, come on, man, like wash your hands, that thing is probably like been there forever. There's not, it's not that dirty, it's the ocean cleaned it up already for you. So anyway, it's a mindset, that needs to be adjusted. And like you said, it's that feeling of doing it and doing it the way you can, right? Which for me was through like, images and social media and this advertising, like, language. It's my way of doing it, but other people can have, their own ways of doing it. And that's great. Like I welcome and I, applaud, however they're doing it, It's as long as you take action, as long as you do something.
And when you dive deep into the ocean, you see a lot of plastic. Like, of course, the majority is going to be like into the shore, right? But
no. What usually happens is this: like, you have the water line, but there's 2 ways that I see plastic, and that's very disturbing. The first one is you see wrapped in coral, right?
Oh,
so
wow.
as I'm diving, usually like shallow waters. I'm talking like 20 feet to 30 feet. And you go to the coral, I would say coral gardens, but the areas that you see like coral here, you know, of the gorgonias, right, the little plants, you see like white plastic, like white piece of plastic, like wrapped around. So what I do is like I go with my knife and try to, you know, free them from it. So you see that a lot. The other and more dangerous one when you're diving is lines. You see quite a lot of fish lines.
Lines?
Lines, like fishing lines.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so people that were fishing, you know, and the hook got you know, attached to a coral or to a rock or whatever. And so those lines are hanging there. And that's very dangerous because you are underwater and that thing is like floating. If that thing wraps around your leg, you're dead, you know.
Wow.
So it's like I try to clean up that stuff too when I see it. That's the wrapped around, the tangled, you know, in reef type of situation. Then what you see a lot too is, especially here in Miami, is when you go like around 2 to 3 miles from the coast. We do a lot of like, you know, like dive out there, pelagic diving. We see where the Gulf current, you know, kind of like touches the water, right? So you have this strong current that comes all the way from here, all the way to Iceland, right? Like it's this warm water current. So it kind of like touches the water from the coast, right? And at the moment that the places that it touches, there's usually that water division, and there's usually where like you have those plastic, a line of plastic, right? Like
wow.
that kind of like sticks because it's different speeds. I don't know what the physics are, but you have that. And then you have also like quite a lot of seaweed, right? You have those like big seaweed islands, right? So between that and those the change of water, you see there's a stretch of water. I would say like it's usually like 10 to 30 feet, like in wide, that goes like all around, throughout, like parallel to the coast with like plastic.
And you've seen this?
You see a lot, yeah. You see it, and you can run parallel to it with like a net. And you'll be like, you know, cleaning. Of course, there's a lot of like life in that, right? Because fish are attracted by that for bad reasons, I guess. But you have like quite a lot of like, you know, seagrass floating, or like, you know, like seaweed and all that plastic. So sometimes we just start, you know, driving by, floating by with like a net and start like taking like, you know, and it's usually like, you know, like I said, like water bottles, like plastic bags, or like, you know, plastic leads, and you start like, you know, straws, and then a lot of like plastics like this big, and they look like, usually transparent ones, and they look like a jellyfish, which is, you know, a
wow.
sea turtle favorite, you know, meal. So it's when I'm diving, honestly, like sometimes I see those pieces of plastic and I can't, like from a distance, I can't discern between it's a jellyfish or it's a piece of plastic. They look exactly the same. So if for me it looks like that, imagine for a jellyfish, you know, for a sea turtle.
So you risk getting stung every time just to pick it up.
Yeah, no, usually I'm wearing like a wetsuit, so I'm fine.
No, yeah,
I have a problem. But yeah, they're all there. There's that line, you know, but
that's crazy.
Yeah, and then you have entangled animals. I mean, I've been lucky enough. Lucky, I wouldn't call it lucky, but I never had the chance. Never saw one entangled animal. I think it will break my heart in a million pieces if I did. But I have an enormous respect, and those are my heroes. You know, those the people who are like, you know, dedicating their lives to free, you know, animals from nets. There is this guy in Namibia, which is incredible, like what he does over there. And he basically Namibia, yeah.
Wow.
Namib Nadi is his name. He basically frees seals from like from the fisherman lines, right? Like there's a lot of fishermen in Namibia.
Yeah.
And of course the seals got tangled in the lines and they died. And so he's a surfer, but his mission is freeing these seals. There's Ghost Fishing UK. It's also a really nice group on Instagram. But they are part of this ghost fishing group, which is ghost fishing is basically the nets and fishing materials that are out in the ocean, and they were abandoned by fishermen, and they are floating forever. And of course they are nets, right? So they are made to entangle fish. So fish keep getting entangled Sometimes they get stuck in the bottom of the ocean. Sometimes they keep on floating, and so they kill seals, they kill like turtles, they kill dolphins, they kill everything. So these groups are like, dedicating their lives to like, remove those pieces of fishing gear from the ocean. That's a pretty big problem, to be honest. Like along with microplastics, fishing gear, abandoned fishing gear.
Yeah, it seems like you're talking a lot about it. It seems like there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you ever fished, you know this already. Like, it's you're fishing out there, and the line breaks, right? Like it hits, like you get it, hooked into some kind of a rock or whatever. Then it's like the line is out there. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. And then next one, and so that is just like you and millions of other people. So that line is there. That's crazy. It's already there. And then you think about the large scale, the fleets, right? Who are like, sometimes they dispose of their nets because they break, because whatever, some storm like moved it. That's another thing that I see actually in Miami. Now that we're talking about this, there's quite a lot of cables on the water because of the lobster traps.
Oh, wow.
When you go out there, like, I don't know, around like a mile or so out, around like, 30 to 40 feet, that's where they land the lobster traps, like those like, wooden boxes. And each one of them has like, a little float on the top, but they're all connected, right? By like, cables, by, a plastic rope basically. And when they retrieve, some of them get lost by whatever, storms break the cables or whatever, they're broken up. So what you see is a lot of ropes. You dive here on Surfside. So you go, there's a couple of places that we go that sometimes we just do that. All we do is just like retrieve the ropes, like we're diving, just taking ropes out of the water, and you're cutting and everything, because it's like hundreds of yards of rope, and it's old, like really, really old. It's just like sitting there, affecting the coral, affecting the life that's on the bottom of the ocean. So it's yeah. We gotta do what we can, man. It's again like it's
terrible.
It's terrible. Yeah.
No, well, that's. Thank you so much. Really, I'm out of questions. I think you really nailed this whole presentation, if I could say that. I don't know if you have any other questions.
No, I don't. I just want to invite everybody that is watching this to really go and do some research. 5 minutes of their time, just like Google plastic, pollution, and do some reading and get to their own conclusions.
Definitely, people have to be aware of what's happening.
Yeah, and then spread the message, And if you can, and if you have a minute, and you're at the beach, start plastic fishing, because that would be great. Join our community. But yeah, I think we need everybody out there that we can to be aware of this problem and take action somehow. Cool.
Thank you so much, and definitely make sure to go check out plasticfisherman.com and your Instagram, Plastic Fisherman. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. That was very informative and knowledgeable, Rodrigo. I appreciate it.
Very grateful with the time and the space that you're giving me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day, man.
Hope to have you back here again.
Thank you.